black community. Are willing to say James Earl Ray was just nuts? That, after that happened, the blacks in America, a lot of blacks in America wanted to burn down every white person's house with whites in it. Let's just declare that any white person who's ever been a member of the KKK...
No, wait. Well, I don't think it's a just comparison between Colin Ferguson and James Earl Ray, because if he did it, it was a politically motivated crime, whereas Colin Ferguson is an emotional and racist crime. But do you really believe, based on what you know about Colin Ferguson, that he's competent to stand trial?
Well, he certainly looks good in a suit and sounds good enough to provide his own defense.
No, but I mean, do you think that
Yes, I do.
You believe? In other words, you think he knows he did it?
Yes.
But he's making believe he's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, no, that I can understand, and that's a legitimate theory. I agree with you there. He could be just faking the whole thing to get off easy. That's a possibility. But assuming that he is telling the truth and that he really thinks he didn't do it and that some Caucasian did it, then he is nuts.
Yeah, he's trying to come off as nuts. This guy was just so...
Well, that's a distinct possibility. Yeah, I would agree with you about that.
And, by the way, this guy sounds pretty coherent to me. Sounds like he could have gotten a pretty good job in a lot of places. He should have went to Queens, where blacks have now surpassed whites on the economic scale. He would have gotten a good job in America. He sounds pretty incoherent to me.
Well, of course he's a lowlife. Nobody is disputing that.
You know what's best about him? He's more than a lowlife. He's arrogant, obnoxious.
But it's possible that he is crazy. To me, in my view, there's a possibility he's nuts. I'm not certain that if I were the judge, I would have found him competent to stand trial.
Well,
I mean, there's always the possibility that he is faking it, but it seems to me there's a pretty good chance, based on what I hear about him, that he is a nut.
In my book, Jay, all crazy people should be put to sleep.
But here's the point. The law as written will do pretty much the same thing with him, whether he's found guilty or whether he's found insane. So we could save ourselves. They're not going to execute him because the law, there's no death penalty. So what I'm saying, John, is that the bottom line is going to be the same whether he's found guilty in this trial after 6 months of putting on this imbecilic show and torturing and tormenting the victims, questioning them, putting himself in control of them again. It's not going to be any different than if the judge just said, look, this guy is terminally insane, lock him up and throw away the key. That's what's going to happen anyway. So why go through the trial?
Well, in one way, we're still lucky that George Pataki was elected governor, because Mario Cuomo would have found a way for this guy to get a pardon eventually if he was elected.
But you see, but you haven't answered me. I want you to. I really did ask you that question. I'm speaking from the heart. You don't have to participate in the exchange with me. I can't force you to. But the bottom line is the result will be the same whether he stood the trial or the judge just declared him insane and they put him away. The same thing would happen. Why do we have to pay for the trial, and why do we have to give him the benefit of making believe he's Perry Mason? There's no reason for it.
Well, I guess we'll just go. Unfortunately, Jay, we're still too civilized of a country.
All right.
He has the right to do that, I guess, and that's why they're doing it.
We're working on being less civilized.
I hope so.
All right, John, I want you to stay on the line because I have a special guest appearance by Maya Angelou, your favorite poet.
You're a troublemaker.
What are you laughing at? I mean it. She's here in the studio. I want you to stand.
Yeah.
Maya, would you like to read that?
Oh, yes. And I want to read it for John of Staten Island, more than all human beings.
All right, Maya.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, John from Staten Island listening on the air with me, Jay Diamond, as Maya Angelou reads her work composed especially for my program.
I composed it just for you, Honorable J. Diamond. My sleep's disturbed. I've come awake because my prose is hard to take. A weary task, this tired dictum of finding words that rhyme with victim, of broken down analogies, of caged birds, rivers, rocks, and trees, with syntax sparse and cliché soaked. My poetic license should be revoked. The truth, you see, I must fess up. My bosom's wealth has all dried up. My talent wouldn't fill a cup. I've fallen and I can't get up. Good morning. See, John, she...
I rise.
Still I rise.
I'd like to know what they're rising from. Being the second most well-off economic group in the world?
All right.
I rise. You know, that sounds like, Jay, remember those hippies in these smoke-filled cafes in the 1960s? They had the little berets on and the little round dark sunglasses.
Yeah.
Hey, on a bongo drum.
Hey, cool, man.
Everybody pretended that what he was saying was so profound.
Yeah.
You know, afraid to say that it meant nothing because then they'd all look like fools.
I rise.
Thank you.
On WABC.
Can't pay any attention to. In the January 1991 issue of Ebony magazine, with Gregory Hines and Sherry Belafonte on the cover.
What do you get, Ebony?
Yeah, well, I keep a watch on my enemies. It talks about...
Wait, now, John, you're not saying all blacks are your enemies.
No, just those who would take the worst things about it and...
Well, I mean, you do recognize a difference, say, between Al Sharpton and Niger Innes,
Of course.
who was on with Curtis last night.
Yeah, well, even he's a little bit naive, but no, Emmanuel McLiddle, Walter Williams,
All right, but
patriotic Americans.
again, sometimes you can engender a lot of discord. When you talk about blacks, you're talking about McLiddle as well as Sharpton.
I think that's understood.
No, well, I hope it is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Don't divert me. But anyway, in that magazine on page 64, it talks about 100 of the most promising black women in corporate America. Now, that's the 100 of the most promising. A U.S. Commerce report released on October 31st, 1994, showed that black women are the fastest growing economic group in the country. In many instances, they earn more than black men and even white men. The number of engineering degrees in the health and engineering fields doubled for black women from 1981 to 1991, and that was on the 11 o'clock news report on this station during the James and Joel show on December 11th of this year.
All right. What else?
Well,
I want you to say something, because, and I like your calls, but lately it's just a recitation of statistics.
yes, well, statistics is what hits them hard. They can't deny it, Jay, but for those liberal lefties who say they're glad Governor Pataki met with Al Sharpton, and it's upsetting all those people who voted for him.
Yeah, George the Tacky.
What did I say?
No, you said Pataki. I say George the Tacky.
Come on now. You still support Rudy when I was mad at him.
Well, I do support Rudy, because Rudy has ethics and a backbone.
No, I don't think he's...
I don't like, and I'll tell you, I don't like Rudy, and I love Pataki, so must be something different between us two.
Well, he's doing a pretty good job.
George Pataki shows me the right respect. Rudy misbehaved. We have to punish Rudy for his misbehavior.
Yes, and Rudy showed too much respect, running up to Harlem the day after he got elected when he should have been out here. But it just goes to show, Jay, that conservatives are not doctrinaire. We'll criticize those we basically agree with. We know it's better to admit when we disagree instead of looking for desperate ways to defend the indefensible.
Just wanted to bring up one more thing, now that you've made these points. Did you see that story in the paper about this guy whose dog gave birth to 9 puppies, and he buried the puppies alive?
I would...
Did you see that story?
Give me 5 minutes with that skunk.
Me too. I would kill that guy.
Yeah, I certainly... Anyone who's cruel to animals, I would execute.
You know what he did? He buried the 9 pups alive under 2 feet of dirt.
I know, I saw it on the news.
The dog, the mother saw him, and 24 hours later dug her babies up.
Yeah, and then the dog got people to notify the police.
Right. Well, yeah, isn't that incredible?
But who was the judge who didn't charge him with anything?
Yeah, that's what... this is why you are good, because that judge let the guy get away with it. That's right. This guy is not going to pay a price. He should go to jail for 5 years for that. Slaughtering out. I've got to go. The signs are being given, and people are getting nervous. Later. Thank you. On the...
I'm still your humble and obedient servant.
Not as much as Governor the Tacky is going to be. George the Tacky going to be my main man. I mean, well, yeah. I'm sorry if you're a little late, Mario, but I may have to take disciplinary action if you misbehave.
No. I ain't misbehaving.
Don't be so smart. That's right, Mr. Spachim, you are late. You know, in Reverend Sharpton's neighborhood, we frown on tardiness. It doesn't set a good example to the boys and girls at home, and hurts their self-esteem. Excuse me, boys and girls, I have to step outside a moment so I can pay Mr. Svachin for the food.
Oh, hey, come on. Hey, take it easy.
Mafia dogs. Now you come back inside and say goodbye to the boys and girls.
Goodbye, boys and girls. And it's a good thing that Jay doesn't know how to imitate George the Tacky. Otherwise, he'd be in here getting beaten up instead of me.
Keep the change. We got a lot to do today, boys and girls, so while I finish off my lunch, let's all get on board Reverend Sharpton's trolley car and visit King Whitey and Queen Shiksa in the multicultural kingdom. All aboard! Well, here we are, boys and girls. And here comes Queen. Hey, you're not Queen Shiksa. And where's King Whitey?
I'm Queen Lenora. Whitey and Shiksa, they ain't around no more.
Well, can I talk to them?
The puppets of the Euro-Zionist conspiracy have been deposed and dealt with accordingly. The multicultural kingdom of white male-dominated oppression, and under the benevolent direction of Father Aristide and the New Alliance puppeteers, this land will now enjoy the freedom of a progressive people's democracy.
Is that burning tires I smell?
It's election day. Speaking of which, you look like an A4816 to me.
Well, Queen Lenore, it was sure nice meeting you, but I gotta go now. Bye. Well, boys and girls, we can all be proud that we live in a country where the ideals of democracy can be celebrated and shared by all members of the multicultural community. Well, look who's here, boys and girls. It's Sonny the Dinosaur. Come on in, Sonny. What song do you have for the children today?
I hate Jews, Jews hate me. I hate Korean delis with a knick-knack, paddywhack. Yellow monkey man, I shut them down whene'er I can.
That was beautiful, Sonny. By the way, how's the 125th Street boycott coming along?
Well, everybody's shaking in their boots now. We went up around 116th Street where Giuliano put us, but the trouble is a lot of the merchants up there are making a lot of money, and we can't make any more trouble since we've been moved. Notice how that went away, Uncle Al Sharpton.
Well, that's right. I was hoping that it wouldn't work out. I mean, we'd been telling everybody the whole time that nobody'd make any money up there on the other market where Giuliano put everybody, but now they're making more money than before. What are we going to do? How are we going to foment some discord if Giuliano turns out to be right all the time and cares more about the community than we do?
Well, we'll think of something, Sonny. I mean, Al.
You, Sonny, I'm Al. You sound like the Jay Diamond Show when people call up and say, hello, Joe.
No, you're Joe.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, back to Al Sharpton and Sonny right after this on WABC.
You want to learn...
Jay, yes, Hilly is articulate, if you like pathological liars. But he's still with the same old nonsense. You know, it's almost, I don't even get angry now when I hear these hysterical liberals when they're criticizing Newt Gingrich. I laugh now. Hysterical. Just watching them crack up. You know, they keep saying the conservative talk show hosts are dangerous. Yeah, you mean opinionated ideas are dangerous to liberals because they don't like democracy. Again, we voted the way we did because conservative talk show hosts had too much influence. I got news for these people who say that, Jay. We conservatives had these views and the basic beliefs that Americans, direct-blooded Americans believe long before talk show hosts came along. And by the way, I love corporate America. They employ people. They're the ones that invest in businesses and provide jobs and keep America going. And I hope they continue it. By the way, you see the profits in Chrysler? It looks like that bailout that the government made money on paid off. 50,000 people kept their jobs. They're now paying taxes. And you know, Jay, liberals still don't get it. The American people want the contract with America, and they want most of the provisions passed within 100 days. And how do you like that creep, Carrie Meek from Florida? Who does Newt Gingrich work for? Did she ask that question of the racist Congressional Black Caucus? How about Al Gore when he wrote his book while he was still in office? Did she ask that question?
Well, he works for the people in his district, presumably, who have elected him for the last eight or so terms, into maybe even actually 9 terms in the House of Representatives. And next time, in 1996, she will again see who he works for. That district can elect to send him back or not to send him back. And let's see if her phonied-up district, once it's changed from being a safe district to a real competitive district, sends her back to Washington. And then we'll see who Carrie Meeks works for.
And where is it written, Jay, that if you work for someone or you're working for the people, you're not allowed to make a living? You know, the liberals are now down to making fun of Republican haircuts. Have the liberals taken a look at the freaks of the 1960s, their haircuts?
No, I don't know this. When do they do that with the haircuts?
Yeah, yesterday they were criticizing the way that Republicans comb their hair.
I did not hear this. Where did you see
On
it?
this station.
Where? Oh, here?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the callers?
Yeah, the callers.
Oh, I thought you meant a congressperson did.
No.
I thought maybe somebody got it. That would have been, no.
Have they taken a look at Ron Kuby or Bill Knustler or Abby Hoffman's haircut lately?
Well, my favorite haircut of anybody alive is actually the CEO of American Airlines, Robert Crandall. You ever see a picture of him? No. Yeah, he has my favorite do of anybody. Well, take a look at him sometime.
How did you like...
kind of guy you'd like.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, really?
Over from the 60s.
No,
also.
not at all. Just the opposite. He looks like he just left the Business Bank.
Ross Perot type.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But how did you like William Knustler saying, I didn't see one smile on the faces of those potential jurors? Oh, it's a big joke. He only shot 27 people. Those people should have... Yeah, they should... You know, Jay?
Yeah.
If those people had been smiling, he would have said, these people don't take this case seriously. They can't get a fair trial.
He's complaining that the jury isn't entirely composed of the Nation of Islam. He would like to look in the jury box and see 12 bow ties. That's what he'd consider to be an honest jury in the case. 12 bow ties, and when they swear in the witnesses, it's got to be on the Koran.
Yeah. I'll never forget when I confronted him at the Brooklyn courthouse. I was in the grand jury there, and he was in the lunchroom. And
you confronted Knustler?
Yeah.
That is a meeting of the minds that I would have paid to see.
I was on that grand jury of the kidnapped Jewish kid in Brooklyn.
Oh, really?
Guy Femer.
Yeah.
And he was there.
Did anybody know that John from Staten Island was on the grand jury?
You know,
once you started to talk, a lot of people stood up and tried to flee the room. Why are they? Nobody would know.
It'd be like the Blob was in the room or something, right?
Because they didn't know you by your real name, John from Staten Island.
The jurors did. Well, no, they didn't know me by my...
Well,
they knew who I was.
To me, your real name is John from Staten Island, but to them, you were just an anonymous John Bleep Bleep.
Yeah. But anyway, he was in the lunchroom, and I started to, confront him about his political views. And he said, I served in Okinawa. I said, what'd you do, shoot American soldiers in the back? and he got so mad, one of his cohorts had to grab him by the sleeve and take him out of there.
No kidding.
He was angry.
You really attacked him?
Yeah, I really gave it to him. Right. Jay, I'm as subtle as a flying mallet. My enemies.
All right, too bad you didn't get a picture.
By the way, how come Carl gets so much time on this station?
Well, I don't know. Am I his agent? Well, what shows is he on? Well, all right. Well, I mean, yeah. Well,
you heard Bob this afternoon. He thought he broke the 7-day rule because he heard him so much.
No, I did not hear Carl on Bob this afternoon. I missed his turn.
Bob said, you're breaking the 7-day rule. I said, no, I called Friday. And Bob said, well, I hear you so often that I thought you broke the 7-day rule.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, but what a racist country this is. Colin Ferguson can now pick his own food.
Oh, well, he says he's being poisoned.
Yeah, but his mind is poisoned.
Well, that's what he said. He said they're poisoning him in the jail. That's why he wants to pick his own food. That's a fact. He claims that they're injecting poison pellets into his dinners. Too bad.
I think that's part of his act of trying to sound crazy.
Well, it is an act, but he might be reminded that Mr. McCarthy and Amy Federici and the 7 other people that he killed don't have any problem. They don't have to worry about poison in their food now.
Yeah, well, I think, he just proved that he wasn't really crazy because now he's thinking of pleading insanity, which is the only way he would get off. He's not so dumb and insane.
You see what you did? You inspired Carl from Manhattan to reply.
Yeah.
Now here he's...
Put him in!
Because, no, it'll just be yelling and screaming back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't know. When you're on... no. Oh, by the way, Curtis assures me he will take your call now.
Yeah, well, he also assured us that he didn't lie about the police report
You see,
for about 3 years.
you can't stop. You're going to ruin it.
He admitted it.
My brother in solidarity promised me that he will take your call.
Don't wake him up. Let him get a snap on the floor of the studio.
Stop it.
Yeah, we want him to be alert tonight. Then the cleaning lady comes around in about an hour to pick it up.
Leave him alone. Why do you have it in for Curtis? I mean,
You know, he said to me the other night,
what?
John will never get a show on WABC. We don't have to worry about that. That's because I'm not a pathological liar.
I beg your pardon.
You know, I didn't file false police reports.
You see, now you're going to ruin it. He was all set to take your call. But I
Who needs them?
I can't blame him for not taking the call if all you do is insult him.
I don't who that needs that pump. But look, that's all right.
Unbelievable. Here it was. I thought that I could put something together, but I think Curtis
last night with Chris. Maybe we can bring Joe and Curtis together. That's why I thought you got my fax.
No, I didn't get your fax last night. I don't know. Faxes have been disappearing.
Yeah, what's going on there?
I don't know. We're going to have
Put
to...
Curtis on it. That'll be another crusade. You can find out what's happening to Jay's faxes. Do a 4-hour show on that. It's outrageous.
You know, you're pretty funny. You are a good satirist.
Well, a lot of people think I'm just full of...
I will say this, that Curtis can make a fried egg sandwich on white bread sound exciting. You have to admit that.
Yeah, well, Curtis is, he's got the gift of a gab. I just wish what he was saying was making sense. Thank you.
All right.
Refer to these Democrat freaks who hate and who are throwing lances at Newt Gingrich. These are warped and twisted people, most of them in their hearts hating America and the traditional American culture and the institutions of the United States that most people have been brought up to revere. Barney Frank, nobody can tell me that Barney Frank represents the average American. You can't say it about Carrie Meeks either. You can't say it about David Bonnier. These are twisted ideologues. These are people with a gut revulsion for the American way of doing things. And these are people who, deep in their hearts, if they were to reveal the truth, hate our fundamental institutions here in the United States and would love to see them come crashing down. They really are, in my view, anti-American people. But I'll be accused of being a polemicist if I say that, but there's a lot of weirdness going on down there. And I don't think that weirdness is an effort to promote wise, sound, and coherent public policy. It's a personal effort to destroy Newt Gingrich because they are jealous of Newt Gingrich and what he did. In fact, you know something? It just occurred to me. Politics in Washington, D.C. is exactly like the radio business. Here's how I can understand it. The reason why the Democrats hate the Republicans, the reason why the Democrats hate Gingrich is because Gingrich was the program director for the most successful station in Washington in 1994 in November. And the rating book came out, and the Democrats got clobbered, and the Republicans were number one. The election was the equivalent of an Arbitron rating book / election reveal. It revealed that more people were tuning into the Republicans than were tuning into the Democrats. And the Democrats handle it just the way New York radio personalities would handle it. What does everybody do every time a book comes out and shows that Howard has a tremendous rating? Everybody denounces Howard, makes fun of Howard, says how stupid Howard is and his whole audience, and Howard's crying all the way to the bank because he knows people are responding to him, and he couldn't care less how he's insulted because he knows he is a success. And he's a success because he does have it. The man's got it. So you got to give the devil his due. But the Democrats don't want to do that. They're like a Johnny-come-lately They're like a second or third or fourth-rate talent who's jealous of another performer on the air who does better. Self-indulgent, self-aggrandizing, yes, for want of a better word, losers. And so they've got to cast lances, they've got to cast bayonets, they have to cast poison-tipped arrows in the direction of the man who symbolizes their disgrace, Newt Gingrich. And I'll show you, but everybody else copies the guy. That's the funny thing, too. The way the Democrats copy the Republicans. The Republicans got elected talking about tax cuts. What did the Democrat president do a week later? He announced his own program of tax cuts. Like radio personalities in New York. A radio personality who's a tremendous success reads a certain news.
Horseman's psychic hotline. If you was in the old country and you needed to know something, you'd look to the stars. Back then, before our history was stolen by the Jews, the people of the community would count the rings in a pile of giraffe droppings to predict a bountiful harvest or a good hunt. But there wasn't always a giraffe handy when you needed one. And that's how astrology was discovered. Our first question comes from a lady in New York City. She asked, "Dear Reverend Sharpton, I'm troubled. My boyfriend and I would very much like to have a baby, but there's one small problem. The police say we have to be married before Khalid can have any conjugal visits. But Khalid's already married. My question is, will I ever have a baby? I can hear my biological clock just ticking away, and I'm already 14. Signed, Raisinetta Mohammed, New York City." Here's my answer. Do not give hope, Raisinetta. I've consulted with the stars and found that your astrological vibrations are a bit out of ovulation. I also see that you're a Pisces, a water sign with a Virgo ascending. Your moon is also in the 7th house, which brings me to the subject of Khalid. If Khalid had stayed at his own house instead of entering his neighbor's house, he wouldn't be in the jailhouse, and you'd already have your baby. My advice to you is to dump Khalid. If you don't have your baby by the next birthday, you come see me. You know, Raisinetta, when it comes to fathering a child, I can tell you from experience that choosing the right man is crucial. I remember when Mrs. Sharpton and I were trying to conceive. And it doesn't bother me to tell you that it wasn't easy. Why, we went to the doctor, and I'll never forget his telling me, he said, "Mr. Sharpton, you're very impotent." And I've never forgotten that advice to this day. And it might be a good idea for the people at home to take heed, too. Our next letter comes from Greenwich Village. It says, "Dear Reverend Sharpton, I'm a gay white male and an active member of the Che Martha, underground political action group affiliated with ACT UP. My problem is that I, too, would like to have a baby. Since I live in a homophobic society and I'm not allowed to adopt because of my political views, my question is, what are my chances I'll ever conceive?" Signed, Brian Sissy Tush. Well, Brian, let me put it to you this way. If life on Earth were hell, I'd name that baby Snowball. By you examining your astrological charts, I can see that you're a Scorpio with the occultation of your masculine and feminine planets. Now, what we need to do is get you an inoculation and try to focus on your prenatural epoch. But the biggest problem I see is an ingress in Uranus. Uranus is rising. Yes, sir. That's just way too much going on with Uranus, Brian. And you got to cut that out. Well, I hope I have helped to enlighten some of you at home, and I hope you come on down to the Slave Theater Bookshop and pick up a copy of my new book, Orion Was a Jew, for only $19.95. Be among the first 100, and I'll let you sign my petition.
This is Jay Diamond on WABC.
There were so many strange things that I heard today that I wanted to address a few other things other than what you started off with tonight. Number one, Jay, I'm tired of hearing liberals say, who's going to pay for these tax cuts? When will liberals ever learn? Tax cuts pay for themselves. The 1980s proved that with a lowering of the capital gains tax, and twice as much money was brought into the U.S. Treasury when Ronald Reagan cut taxes. When people have money in their pocket, they feel good and they go out and spend, and it brings money into the tax coffers. So, and then when the liberals get caught betraying their own philosophy, Jay, when the outcome isn't to their liking, they always make up their own scenario and ignore the facts. For instance, for years, the left cried, power to the people, let the people decide. But when the people made their decisions on November 8th and Proposition 187, etc., the liberal excuse was, we just didn't get our message across. Now, Chris Dodd said that again over the weekend. Another thing I heard over the weekend, another Democratic lefty, Ron Brown. Who is this guy to make any statement about anything after his shenanigans with the North Koreans and his shady business deals with his ex-partner who just now paid off his $190,000 mortgage?
Yeah, and what's that chick doing in that townhouse that he bought for her?
Yeah, maybe he's shacking up with her. More Democratic lack of morals. But he said the 1980s, we just gave the American people, the middle class, a tax break. Yeah, after the Republicans pushed them into it. And he said the Republicans gave the rich the tax break. Again, that doggone lie keeps coming up. Rich people paid 11% more of all total federal taxes by the time Ronald Reagan left office. And the poorer people paid 2% less. And then this business with O.J. Simpson. He couldn't have committed these crimes because, after all, look at all of his football injuries. Yeah, he should. That didn't stop him from making a couple of $1 million running through airports, jumping over turnstiles, and dodging groups of people. He looked pretty good. That was the picture we got of him, the same old O.J.
No, you see, I learned something about it. You can't blame him for that. You know that Hertz commercial where he was running in the airport and jumping over everything?
Yeah.
That really was not staged. What happened was he was running to get Nicole. She was at the other end of the airport, and he apparently was mad at her for something, and he was going to get her.
Right, but all of a sudden now he's a cripple. It's amazing. And
Yeah.
Bob Simon, you know that fink that disappeared on his own during the Middle East War and got captured by the Iraqis because he wouldn't stay with the group of reporters?
Yeah,
He had
yeah,
to
that's
find
right,
out a
that's
story of his own.
Yeah,
He wouldn't give America any information?
Yeah, you don't like people who are trying to get scoops.
I like people who obey the rules.
But you have something against them, some psychological thing against people who get scoops.
Well, when they get them to try and make their own government look bad, that's what I resent, and that's what he was doing. He said the Japanese, well, he was talking about the earthquake in Japan on the news this morning. He said the Japanese have made a career out of rising out of the ashes. Yeah, with our help. Where would they be without the United States millions and rebuilding them in our image after World War II? Which brings me to Anthony of the Bronx. He said 30 years of us providing jobs and money.
All right. You know, when it gets too personal with the callers, I think it's... Yeah, and I don't want to... Are you talking about what he said on my show? Because they can't
On your show.
Oh, okay.
He called you the other night.
Yeah, I remember.
No, 30 years isn't good enough to provide for those people. He wants to happen to the rest of the third world what him and his racist brothers have done in America. Generations living off of this country.
Now, well, you can't say that about all blacks, John. The majority of blacks aren't living off the country. Let's be
people who
honest.
think like him.
Well, I see what you mean. Now, John, are you going to bed early tonight or are you staying up?
I'll be up for a while.
Great. So tonight is the night. Then I am going to be the peacemaker. I'll be tonight we're going to have the round table with you and Curtis. What do you say?
I won't be up that late, and he's not worth it.
But my brother in Solidarity told me that he will take your call.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm interested in talking to him. If
gotta
I go
talk
on
to
his
him.
show,
Don't
I
you
want to
understand?
debate Hilly and that racist Bob. Or, no, Carl.
Yeah, well,
I'll take on the two of them at once.
Bob
I want
can-
him to stay out of it because all he does is interfere.
Well, all right. I thought you fellas could sit down and we'd break bread and make
Now,
peace
I'm
together.
the Israelis, and he's Yasser Arafat as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
And he's got that dumb turban on his
I
head, too.
have to tell my brother in Solidarity that you are not ready to begin the peace process.
Yes.
How about the healing process?
Yeah, the healing. They said the same thing after Crown Heights. Let's start the healing process. Until enough time goes by, and it's forgotten about, and then they go back on the rampage.
No, you walk down the street, you see a little guy standing there with glasses reading a newspaper, you kick the bejesus out of him, and then he gets up and he looks at you, and somebody, his big brother comes to beat you up, and you said, no, now is not the time for recriminations. The guy's lying there with blood on his face. Now is the time to begin the healing process.
Yeah. I'm telling you, they're like eels slithering through Vaseline.
Where have I heard that expression? Listen, well, I'll talk to you later. Maybe you'll call back in the last hour.
All right.
I still want you to sit down and break bread with my brother in Solidarity. And you know what? Curtis even told me that when the peace is made, I'll broker the peace, and he'll even allow you to go out on patrol with the Angels. How do you like that?
Oh, whoopee. Is he providing my health insurance? Keep asking.
Yeah, would you send me that drawing that I want to see, please?
Yeah, as soon as I get my system back.
Always an excuse.
No,
always
really. Well, I'll send it to you.
All right. I got my facts. Come on, just a little bit, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead, let me hear. Just a little bit.
Oh, you mean Hilly?
Yeah. Let me hear. Just a little bit.
I don't know. I'm not up to it.
Look at this guy. It's unbelievable. I got prima donnas.
Yeah.
All right. Get off my phone. Good night. On the...
Although some people would disagree with you. A sick brain, they would say. But, Jay, once again tonight, we've been vindicated. I thought Ronald Reagan was giving that speech.
Yeah, me. I thought it was Limbaugh.
You know, every time this guy talks about both parties coming together, he blames the Republicans for something. He spoke of change in 92 and 94. Yeah, well, the change that the people voted for in 94 was to go back to 1992. And if you'll notice, once again, Jay, he spoke of the founders of America. He wouldn't say founding fathers. He was afraid he'd upset a special interest group. He hasn't changed that much at all.
Afraid of his wife.
Yeah, he was afraid maybe she'd throw another lamp at him from the balcony. He spoke of, you know, Jay, everything he proposed passing or doing something about has been spoken about by conservatives and Republicans for years, and we were labeled heartless, illegal aliens.
No compassion.
Yeah.
Mean-spirited. Insensitive.
Yeah. Now they have a new line. We want to punish the poor. See, that's the catchphrase that somebody told him that he should probably use an awful lot to make the Republicans look bad. He spoke of workfare, welfare reform, line item veto, taking responsibility, a strong military and less government, all Republican ideas.
Well, that sounds familiar. I thought I said some of these things at the beginning, Gary.
Well, you did, but...
I'm glad you're repeating.
Well, here's another thing. Everything he addressed that's wrong with America was caused by democratic and liberal policies. He says, the values that held us together are now falling apart. Yeah, thanks to liberalism and their brainstorm ideas like multiculturalism, he spoke of how wrong it is to reward failure, like outcome-based education. Whose brainstorm was that? Another liberal idea. He had the nerve to say. Like Hillary's Health Commission that met behind closed doors. And if you'll notice, Jay, he said, we were stronger than we were 2 years ago. Yeah, we got stronger after November 8th. And the lie that inflation and unemployment is at its lowest point in 20 years. No, it was under Ronald Reagan. We had the lowest inflation and unemployment in 17 years.
You're making an interesting point. We did literally get stronger after November 8th because the Assistant Secretary of Defense, John C. Deutsch, was forced to reverse his testimony to the Congress where he actually misstated the case. I'm not saying he lied outright, but he was proved to be in error when he claimed that we're at our highest state of readiness ever, and then it became clear. Then even the Secretary of Defense countermanded him by saying 3 divisions were not up to fighting strength. And then, if you remember, Bill Clinton proposed a $25 billion infusion of money into the Pentagon to help right the wrongs.
Well, you know, I only watch this now, Jay, to get a laugh and to count the lies. The 6 million new jobs he talked about creating, well, he's only got 15 million more to create to catch up to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, but you know what was even more disappointing and more frightening to me as an American? That the Republican Party is showing their traditional bent towards self-destruction by selecting this Nancy Cope to give the address tonight. You know who I mean.
You know, I'm glad you said that. You reminded me because I was going to say something about that when I first came on with you. I was outraged that they picked this pandering coward. You're right. She is no conservative.
Not at all.
She is an ultra-liberal Republican running scared coward. And there's something going on here where they're pushing. Do you notice that she announced, I'm glad she's cutting taxes, but you'll notice that she announced this cut a year ahead of time, right before she went national with this response. Now, they're setting something up.
They're going to want to run her on the ticket as vice president. That'll be the end of the country and the end of the party.
Well, one final thing. You know how Bill Clinton spoke of how Los Angeles was rebuilt a year ahead of time after the earthquake out there?
Yeah.
That was because of Republican Governor Wilson, who was willing to lay out a lot more money than he had in the, well, I don't know where he got the money, but he paid these contractors a lot more money to work overtime to get the city built a year ahead of time. so that people could get back to work, and it was for the people. And you know who criticized him when he did that? Democrats. They were jealous that he got the city built ahead of time. And Bill Clinton tonight tried to take credit for that. I mean, this guy, you've got to watch every move this guy makes and everything he says. Oh, he earned that name, Slick Willie, tonight.
All right, thank you, John.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay, Bill Clinton runs for president. You know, I'm just old enough to have been weaned on the old-style leader, the men of enormous substance. And I never took Bill Clinton serious. Never mind his political philosophy. I just took one look at him. I said, no, not president, not even best friend. If I were casting the film, he wouldn't even be best friend. Christine Whitman, the same thing. Christine Toad Whitless, the stand-in for Nancy Culp on the Beverly Hillbillies. Every time I look at Christine Toad Whitless, I look for Raymond Bailey standing behind her with the mortgage. Some of you will know who Raymond Bailey is. I guess John Booty knows. Well, what was his name in the Beverly Hillbillies? Miss Hathaway. She was Miss Hathaway, and he was what? Mr. Drysdale. Mr. Drysdale, the banker, and Miss Hathaway was his secretary. So every time I see Nancy Culp, Christine Whitless, I look for Raymond Bailey, Mr. Drysdale. These are nothing. What was Christine? She was nothing. Do you know that we're living in a world of hype? Anybody can be the governor, anybody can be the president, and anybody can be on the radio. Excuse me. No, but it's just factual. Take a look at these. This woman was a freeholder from where? Out in Hunterdon County? A freeholder in Hunterdon County. That means they have fox hunts every year, and she puts on a red vest, and she gets up on her noble steed and runs after the fox, and because she has 50 generations of inherited old money, she is somebody. But actually, she was nobody, and she is nobody. Who is George Pataki? Can you compare George Pataki? I mean, he has good educational credentials, I will concede that. But just compared to the kind of person who tended to be governor, he is a non-entity.
Could have been California. Hello, B1.
Diamond in the rough. New York being a little on the rough side, the town of my birth. This thing New York did to me may have been reflected a little bit in my one-minute speech, and it was only that I talked too rapidly sometimes, like most New Yorkers, because I crammed 3 minutes into 1 minute. But the 4 points that I covered, it's interesting that nobody wants to mention point 4, which shows how calm I was, the humor that I was using, because number 4 went something like this. Well, I'll give it to you verbatim. And Mr. Speaker, will somebody tell Clinton that the Second Amendment is not about hunting little ducks or hunting at all? It isn't killing 2 little ducks and leaving Huey and Dewey and Louie without an aunt and an uncle. Of course, that means Donald and Daisy. I said it's about hunting politicians. Now, I knew that would get their attention, but then I dated it. Like in 1776, or over in Grozny, Chechnya. And that was it. Nobody wants to talk about that except the NRA's. The phone is ringing off its hooks. But everybody got focused, and now some Democrats came up to me and told me, and more or less thanked me for doing it because they think Clinton destroyed the party. They said the one word that triggered it was enemy. That if I had said he gave aid and comfort to the forces in Hanoi, well, the mobilization campaign coordinated out of Hanoi and Moscow that was in Paris, London, where Clinton was one of the organizers, San Francisco, New York, Cleveland, and Washington, D.C., they said they wouldn't have picked up on it. But you said giving aid and comfort to the enemy. So that's what they wanted taken down, and I refuse to apologize because that's not name-calling. That's stating a fact. It's making a charge, but it's not name-calling, and I don't think it violated the rules.
So they punished you.
Well, I punished myself, and this is kind of interesting because one of our leaders came up to me, Tom DeLay, who's number 3 in our chain of command, and said, do you want to have a vote right away and get your speaking rights restored? We'll roll them because we're the majority, and all the freshmen are jumping up and down the cloakroom. They're in love with you for doing this. And I said, no, let it stay. I wasn't planning on speaking anyway today. I moved my special order until tomorrow. I did one speech on the House floor today on the same theme, but in a different way. They don't know what to do now. And I said, no, let it stay, because we may want to implement sweeping somebody off their feet with cause and let it stay all day long. So if suddenly we turn around and use majority power to, let me be Martin Luther King here with civil disobedience. If you push the rules, if you want to be tough, the way Carrie Meek was last week on Gingrich's book deal, she wouldn't apologize, so neither would I, although I didn't think about that till afterward, but let the punishment sit. And I'll tell you, two things have happened, and you're going to be the first one to hear it. I've had a POW from Hanoi send me, a man severely tortured, Jim Warner. He sent me an article that he wrote when Al Gore, now listen to these words, said Ollie North was giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
If you were being tortured in North Vietnamese Hanoi jungles, Congressman, knowing that Bill Clinton and his ilk were actually trumpeting the triumph of Hanoi.
He said this one torturer showed him pictures of the demonstration in Grosvenor Square on November 15th of '69, of which Clinton was a leader. 6 weeks later, he left for Helsinki, Leningrad, Moscow, and Prague, and met with George McGovern in the National Hotel. The national press has refused to put this out on the election and right up to where we speak. And I'll tell you something. I will resign from office tomorrow if some reporter at the New York Times, who may be listening to you by design or chance, if they can prove that George McGovern was not at the National Hotel, the best hotel in town, where all the visiting dignitaries from Laos or Ukraine or communist to Cuba, they all went to the National because it was built in 1910 under the Tsars. That's where Bill Clinton, age 23, 6'2", overweight, with a huge red ginger-colored beard, he was at that meeting to where McGovern was to be congratulated for the new mobilization meetings and the fall offensive is what both sides called it, in London, coordinated with Derek Shearer, who's now ambassador to Finland, with Strobe Talbot. They had the big Cleveland meetings at Strobe Talbot's instigation on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1969. Get this, I have found documents where Strobe Talbot went to Moscow in the summer and wrote that he set up the contacts with Bill Clinton, the people he was supposed to meet. And one of them was this peculiar KGB colonel who Jesse Helms asked Talbot about when he was going through his confirmation hearings. And he said, oh, yes, Victor Lewis. That was his phony pseudonym for a KGB colonel. He was a very interesting guy. I took him around the Washington, D.C. area. He became very close to him. Look, Jay, the bottom line is Bob Dornan is counting the months until we can not only get rid of Jocelyn Elder, but get rid of Derek Shearer, Strobe Talbot, Sam Brown, Clinton, and every other pro-Hanoi, bootlicking, radical betrayer of our POWs and our men in the field, those high school kids fighting in their name.
And it's bad enough that McCain and Stockdale and so many thousands others had to experience the torment of seeing these protesters shown to them in pictures by their captors. But what about the guys who died there, who saw that as the last thing they saw in this life?
Today on the House floor this afternoon, I put in the names of 8 men beaten to death or died of torture wounds. One of them, Major Earl Cobile, was catatonic from beatings. And one of the 3 Cubans, and we know who one of them is, he was a brigadier general at the UN, and I demanded to know why he wouldn't be arrested and held. Like, you know, they kidnapped that huge fat doctor that tortured to death. Kiki Camarena kept waking him up with adrenaline shots and torturing him.
You mean in Mexico?
In Mexico. We kidnapped that big guy, and the court decision said we had to return him, but at least we had him for 2 years. He lost a lot of weight. But I thought, why didn't we get this Brigadier Cuban? So our POW is called the leader, tall, handsome, a better-looking version of Castro. They call him Fidel. They call the other guys Chico and Pancho, the bravado of prisoners. And these 3 guys came to teach the Vietnamese how to torture Americans and how to break them. And the leader, Fidel, got this one guy, Earl, and called him the Faker. Cobile was totally catatonic. He walked in the cell, Norland Daughtry, telling me this, broke down sobbing. He cracked him across the face with a riding crop, and the major never even blinked. He thought it was defiance, and he was faking. The men stood there at attention, 3 of them, and knew that he had now gone over the edge and was incapable of offering any resistance. So he punched him in the face and knocked him to the ground. He grabbed him by his hair and his ears and began to beat his head on the concrete floor, screaming, "You GD effing," but the word, faker. "You GD faker. You SOB." Beating his head, beating his head. Finally, there's blood all over the floor. The major's not even blinking. He stands him up, slaps him up against the wall, and marches out of the room, and they never saw him again. His remains were returned about 4 or 5 years ago, 20 years later. Now, that's the kind of conduct went on there. And when I said on the House floor, and I stand by it, that's why I said, hell no, when they asked me to apologize. Nuts, I said under my breath. I'm just back from Bastogne, reliving.
Yeah, that's, who said, there was a general that said, when
McAuliffe.
McAuliffe, explain to the people what this is. The German commander sent him an ultimatum during the Battle of the...
Bastogne was surrounded by German panzer units.
Right.
And he sends in, and the whole U.S. 106th Division had surrendered, two-thirds of it.
That's right.
And they were young college kids, by the way, who weren't supposed to be there. Congress says, don't send 18-year-olds over, and the Army sent them over, so they were decimated. Some of them fought well, but it was pretty rough. Most of them surrendered. So they thought they'd surrender at Bastogne.
Right.
The 101st Airborne, battle-tested from the night before Normandy all the way up through Market Garden up in Holland in September. They were battle-hardened, and they drove into Bastogne, then got surrounded. Now, here's a little irony for your history buffs out there. The famous general, Maxwell Taylor, the friend of the Kennedys. One of the kids is named after him. The other famous General Gavin was made ambassador to France by Kennedy. He was the commander of the 82nd All-American, but the 101st Screaming Eagles, where's Maxwell Taylor, called back to the United States for conferencing on how to finish off Hitler.
Wow.
His division is turned over to his number 2 guy, McAuliffe, John McAuliffe. And that's why today it's McAuliffe Square in Bastogne instead of Maxwell Taylor Square.
But when the German commander sent him the surrender ultimatum, he just had a one-word reply.
Well, he said to his staff, this is nuts.
Nuts.
What should we tell him?
Yeah.
And one of his, and I flew over there with Harry Kennard, a 29-year-old lieutenant colonel, his G3 ops, and he says, well, General McAuliffe, that's pretty darn good right there. Nuts. He says, okay, let's do it. So he sends his young captains out there, and they're meeting with these German spit-and-polished Panzer commanders, and the German goes, and your German speakers can correct me later with a call, but one of them says, Neut? I think the word is somebody goes, Neut? Was ist das? Negative or affirmative? And he says, well, that means, General, hell no. Hell no. That's what I said on the House floor.
Good.
Hell no.
Bob, I really appreciate it. I'm backed up here for spots and everything. I am grateful that you took the time to come visit with me tonight on WABC. Hello, John. Hi.
Hi, Jay. That was a great interview with Bob Dornan.
Yeah, John, was I too angry? Was I too crazy?
Let me tell you something. There was nobody more angry than him on the Senate floor.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with anger if it's in a good cause.
That's right. It's an honest emotion. And there's nobody more angry than the liberals who hate you.
That's right.
Those hypocrites.
But nobody ever notices the anger of liberals. Why is that, John?
Yeah.
They're never angry. They're righteously indignant.
Yeah, exactly. They always come up with a name to excuse their activity. Or their attitude. And speaking of liberals and their tactics and modus operandi, Jay, another fright tactic employed by another ultra-liberal, Charles Schumer, said yesterday, the passage of the balanced budget amendment will put nooses around the necks of senior citizens. You see who they go after, Jay, to try and frighten us out of doing what's good for America? Liberals and Democrats get their power through obtaining tax dollars so they can go back to their constituents and spend it in their districts so they can say, you see what we did for you? And this Republican program is going to take a lot of that power away from them. So what do? They try and frighten all of the older people and so-called poor Americans who are on the lower echelons of the economic scale. And by the way, this, what the hell is they call it? Why I got a blank. The minimum wage. The minimum wage, Jay, was never meant to be a salary that would carry a family. Then that monstrosity on Long Island, Colin Ferguson, said, well, you see, it's very easy to accuse a black man of something. Look what Susan Smith did. Yeah, the black community was very outraged at that, Jay. Jay, where was the anger of the black community when Tawana Brawley accused innocent whites of raping her? And Colin Ferguson accusing white people of shooting the 27 people. The black community didn't say a word about those ridiculous, insane charges, even though blacks rape people in this country at a ratio of 10,000 to 1 compared to whites. Then we had another typical liberal tactic. Dick Armey, his remarks about Barney Frank today. You know, Jay, there was more outrage about Dick Armey's remarks than Barney Frank's activities, running a house of prostitution for males. They were more mad at Dick Armey's remark than what Barney Frank did.
Well, I can't lie to you. I thought his remark was inappropriate.
It was, but what was worse? What Barney Frank did?
No, but I have no use for Barney Frank. I think he is a disgrace to the not only the House of Representatives, all his colleagues, but the country, and it shows. I would love to go to that district. And I don't know. I'm speaking ironically. I'd like to go to that district in a protective bubble, because I wouldn't want to be exposed to individuals who regularly send this incubus back to Washington. But I loathe Barney Frank. I just don't want to be passive while we talk about Dick Armey, who I thought was smarmy. No rhyme intended.
You know, you could be a rap singer. But you know, they...
Thanks, John. Can you get me a contract with your connections?
No, not my connections. You'll have to talk to your friend Hilly. And by the way, Hilly, O.J. is even more guilty than ever.
I'm glad you reminded me about O.J. Stay on the line. Do we have that... John, put the O.J. thing in there, one of those cuts. John, don't go away. I want you to help me with this.
I want to state unequivocally...
Say it to John from Staten Island, O.J. John, are you there?
I don't think I even know anyone who's capable of doing such a thing.
I'm here.
I can't think of anybody I've ever known who could have done something this terrible. I've tried all my life to be a good citizen.
You
Now I
damn
see how
bitch!
fickle they can
You
be
little
now.
stick! Let me in there!
Hopefully some
I'll
people
bang
will
down the
listen
door!
to me and want me to be
You
guilty.
damn bitch! Let me in if I get my hand! Let me in there, you damn bitch! I'm gonna get in there!
I had nothing to do with it.
I didn't know good citizens beat their wives 50 or 60 times during their marriage.
Nor did I. I mean, this is really unfathomable to me. Does the average, never mind him, does the average defendant get the chance to fight back by having a book published about himself? Passing himself off? Yeah, passing himself off as a solid citizen.
And what a racist country, Jay.
Yeah.
He's got the greatest lawyer team I've ever seen put together in this country where justice is not provided for black people. You know, it's not even something to get mad at anymore, Jay. I laugh. They're exposing themselves constantly.
Well, but the fact that he is able to mount this kind of a social defense, never mind the courtroom defense. I mean, if I, for example, would be taken away in handcuffs, would I be able to have tapes of myself broadcast all over the country telling the world I was no other defendant has access to this kind of propaganda, and he does. But you don't. If they really wanted to be fair, since everybody's so concerned these days with fairness, why don't they also have, every time you play that cassette of him that he sells you with his book that he sells you, why don't they also mandate that you play the tape of him go, right?
Right, equal time.
Right. I'm real late, John.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
The plane, boss, the plane.
All right, everyone. Quickly now, to your places. Yes, that's right. Notice the rich Corinthian...
Boss, that's the commercial. This is the show.
Oh, excuse me, Tattoo. I almost forgot. I almost put myself into the different film.
That's all right, boss, but the plane is still coming.
All right, everybody to your place. Tattoo, are you ready to meet our guests and to make them feel welcome?
Yes, boss.
Very well, then. Here they come now.
Who's that one, boss?
Why, Tattoo, that is Senator Ted Kennedy, Tattoo.
Oh.
Yes, Tattoo. Senator Kennedy's fantasy, you see, is to re-experience a moment of an aspirant age from his youth, in the hopes that making some changes in his past will reflect and otherwise alter his future, thereby improving his chances for a presidential bid in 1996.
You mean he wants to go back in time and warn his brother to stay out of valleys?
Well, no, not exactly, Tattoo. You see, Senator Kennedy's wish and most fervent desire is to revisit Chappaquiddick and drive a Lincoln Continental off of a bridge with Christine Toad Witless strapped to the front seat.
Oh, say, boss, who's that?
Oh, that is the Reverend Al Sharpton, Tattoo, a noted Jew from New York. He is a very successful entertainer and a leader of his community. He is here as a representative of Henry Cisneros. You see, Tattoo, Jesse Jackson has determined that Fantasy Island discriminates against the vocationally impaired.
So, Reverend Sharpton has come here on behalf of the Clinton administration to scout future location of the Section 8 timeshare condo. Oh, boss, what is a Section 8 timeshare condo? You see, people who don't have enough money because they are oppressed by vicious America apply to the government, and taxpayers pay for luxury vacations for crack addicts, prostitutes, and teenage mothers. Oh, we better move to another island, boss. No, we're not allowed. We must stay here and live with these pathological individuals. But what are we going to do? We cater to the upscale crowd. We'll have to change. Like everyone else gets used to sleaze, we'll have sleaze here on Fantasy Island. Oh, who is that lady with Sharpton? Oh, that is no lady, Tattoo. That is Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She has come to assist the Reverend in his endeavors and also to seek a cure for her rapidly failing eyesight. Oh, that's a shame, boss. Yes, Tattoo, she is in a bad way. Her eyesight has degenerated to such a degree she can no longer tell the difference between a box of Pampers and a case of malt liquor. Oh, look. Oh, that's terrible, boss. Look, Tattoo, do you know who that is? No, boss. Who is it? Why do you speak with an aspirant age? Because I follow you, boss. Who is it? Never mind. Why, that is the First Lady, Hillary Clinton. Her fantasy is to discover a new identity which will complement her husband's latest core beliefs. I saw the State of the Union address, boss. He sounded more like Ronald Reagan. You're starting to sound like me, Tattoo. I don't know that I like your obvious attempt at satire. Well, boss, he's a living. Ah, yes, Tattoo, but you must remember one thing. That was on Tuesday, and by next week, he may become Harry Truman again. No, Tattoo, Hillary's new persona must be adaptable and capable of adjusting to the ever-changing character of her husband, who is, after all, the President of the United States and leader of the free world. No matter how frightening that prospect may be, her new personality will reflect that of a simpler time, Tattoo. A strong and profound woman, yes, one who is more placid and subdued, analogous of an old-fashioned and bygone era. We believe we have found such a character, one we believe will meet with the overwhelming approval of the American people. But, boss, she's already been Eleanor Roosevelt, Jackie Kennedy, Morgan Fairchild, Abigail Haddam, Bella Habsburg. Stop with the aspirant age. You're making me very upset. Okay, boss, Mary Lincoln, Rosalind Carter, and Larry King. Who else is left? Why, Tattoo, Helen Keller, of course. Cool. Places, everyone, places. And remember, smile, everyone, smile. Yes, Tattoo, cool indeed. All right, on WABC, this is Jay Diamond.
So I'll move on to a couple of other things. You know, George Pataki is taking flack for raising tuition for certain universities. Now, these same hypocritical critics didn't blast Mario Cuomo like this when he tried to raise tuition for city college students. Remember those spoiled brat punks crashing through the glass doors up at the State House and taking over the building? Half of them, they were demonstrating against the rise in tuition rates for city college, and half of them were foreign invaders and couldn't even speak English. They were here on visas and cursing out America. Secondly, Jay, there was a poll that was taken and released in the last couple of days that supposedly showed that the number of poor, as defined by continuing census figures, has increased from 5 to 6 million since 1987. And notice it was mostly after Ronald Reagan left office. Now, it's the way that we define so-called poor in America that makes it appear as though the number of poor has increased. The United States Census doesn't count half of the benefits that so-called poor receive. So a so-called poor family could actually be bringing up to $28,000 into the household and more. And liberals will always inflate negative figures to make America appear to be neglectful and uncaring, and that capitalism is a failure. They exaggerated the number of people without health care. It turned out to be only 9 million, according to a poll. They exaggerated the number of homeless.
Yeah.
Thirdly, Jay, 2 days ago, these are all instances to show the bankruptcy of liberals. A poll showed that Bill Clinton's approval rating dropped 4 points after his speech. Now the left-wing Washington Post, which is even further left than the New York Times, comes out with a poll that says Bill Clinton's approval rating has risen up to 54%, and Newt Gingrich's
Yeah.
approval has dropped to 36. Now, I don't want to do what liberals do, Jay, and that is disregard numbers just because they don't support my beliefs. But I'll guarantee that the wording of the question or questions asked were formed in such a manner to guide the response in favor of Bill Clinton. It's like someone from the Amsterdam News taking a poll of blacks in Harlem
Well.
and saying, who do you like more, whites or blacks?
No. Who do you like more? White cops who kill blacks or blacks?
Yeah.
No, but the bottom line is I think there's a big poll coming up that will be very revealing. It's usually pretty accurate.
Yeah, the presidential election.
Yeah, that's right. You read my mind.
Yeah, you wait till the next time. All these desperate finagling of the liberals trying to get people to believe that all this great victory wasn't real. They're going to be shocked for about the 6th time since 1972.
Yeah, but they'll have an excuse. They always have an excuse why they lost.
Of course, they have to have an excuse because can you imagine after all these years, Jay, having to admit that you're wrong? Your whole life is negated.
No, I like the latest excuse, though, John. Talk radio did this to us.
No, yeah, you, Bob, and Rush. Hey, you're a trio now.
Yeah,
We can't think for ourselves. We were all influenced by you.
that's right. That's why.
We were brainwashed.
Right, it's talk radio's fault. The vicious hate on talk radio elected Gingrich.
Yeah.
Right. And then no matter who wins, no matter which Republican wins, we're going to hear, oh, it was because of hate radio elected the Republicans. Yeah, maybe I'll tell you, maybe we should all listen to Love Radio, and then Sharpton would be elected president.
Yeah, all those derogatory remarks we heard about Richard Nixon, Dan Quayle, and Ronald Reagan, that wasn't hate.
No.
Hypocrite?
That's why I like B1 Bob Dornan, John.
Oh, wasn't he beautiful?
Isn't he terrific?
But you know, I was really angry at the... Right, I didn't mean...
No, who?
You know who chased him off the floor? Our fellow Republicans, those cowards. That's why...
You know something? Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. Then I got a great idea. Go ahead.
Well, that's why we have to support conservatives, not Republicans.
Well?
Lowell Weicker is a Republican.
Who is your congressman? Molinari? Susan?
Yeah.
Well, she's not the real thing.
She's so-so.
So-so.
Yeah.
She's a moderate Republican.
Yeah, she went back on her vote for the crime bill.
That's right. Hey, John, you're in Staten Island. Why don't we see a real... Let me tell you something. A lot of those freshmen who were elected, those 73 freshmen, couldn't hold a candle to you. Why don't you run?
Because, Jay, I want to remain honest.
I'll get behind you.
No, I want to be able to say what I think. And you know, that phony Ed Koch called Bill Dornan a nut. See, this guy, Ed Koch, is the biggest fraud. He hasn't got the guts to come out and say... He says he's the voice of reason, but he's the voice of cowardice.
Have you called him? Have you called...
I hear you all over the dial.
Can you get on to Koch?
No.
You're banned?
I don't know if I am, but what happens is the little dictator who runs the screening over there tells you that, he pretends that he's going to take your call, and then no matter how early you call, eventually you never get on.
Well, my feeling is that I'm not kidding, I think that you should run for Congress against Susan Molinari. I mean that. John from Staten Island for Congress from Staten Island. You'll shake him up. Now, you're like B1.
You know the names I'd be called, Jay? If I continued to speak out the way I do on talk radio?
Well, you could modify your views.
Yeah.
All right.
I'd be like some talk show host. Thank you.
He always sneaks one in at the end. By the way, John, you hung up before I could ask you to send me that little drawing that you've been promising to send me for 2.5 years, John. The drawing, John. The fax machine is working now, John, on WABC.
Hope you still think that. Jay, you know, your opening remarks were so thorough regarding this latest double standard outrage at Rutgers that it's hard to follow up, but I'm going to try. First of all, Jay, why is it all right for sportscasters and other self-hating white lackeys to point out that blacks, on the average, are better athletes than whites, which is not true. I believe it to be the opposite, but nevertheless, that belief can be stated without anyone being labeled racist. But if you dare to suggest that whites and Asians may be superior intellectually, it's the Second Civil War. Now, Leonard Jeffries gets $400,000 for his fire Franklin Lawrence. Now, why? For the other reason, the only reason they want to do that, Jay, is because he's white. And as you touched on, it's just another way to defeat the system by getting rid of another white guy who's on top. Now, where were these same racially sensitive, ulterior motive anarchist troublemakers, Jay, when Mayor Sharp James of Newark said when Peter Rodino wanted to run for office, Peter Rodino is just the wrong color to represent Newark.
Let's examine the truth in what he said.
Yeah. It's a double standard again. And where were they? Where in the Newark Star-Ledger, they reported in December of '93 that the white students on one college campus were awakened in the middle of the night by a group of black students chanting, "Kill white, kill white." And of course,
Nice to wake up to that.
yeah, you talk about a rude awakening. And they remember Board of Regents member Adelaide Sanford said in 1993 that she's only interested in the education of black students. And then, of course, Jay, those Asians and white liberal jerks who marched with them, you know, the anarchists, maybe they should take a look at how minorities feel about each other instead of worrying about white racism. In a poll taken by Lou Harris's new firm, LH Research, in February of '94, for instance, 46% of Hispanics and 42% of blacks agreed with the statement that Asians were unscrupulous, crafty, and devious in business. So these Asians who always side with these radical blacks better learn who their real friends are, Jay.
Yeah, but 98% of those people who answered that way, according to my statistics, also believe that a synonym for crafty, sneaky, and insidious is hardworking and efficient.
Right.
All right.
Of course. One other thing.
What else? What else?
You see, Marion Berry...
By the way, very few people know that you are an accomplished artist. That you have great...
Including you.
That you have... That's right, because I've never seen proof of your work, even though I've been told quite often for the last 3 years that I was going to be treated to an example of your fine artistic skills, John.
Wow. Last night it was 6 months. In one night we went from 6 months to 3 years.
I may have to expose you to all the world as an individual who doesn't live up to his promises.
You'll get it, you'll get it.
Yes, that's what you've been saying since 1991.
Let's get to something important here. Hazel, you know...
I'll try to change the subject. Do you know that I was sitting at my desk one day here at WABC, and Hazel Duke walked right by me?
Really?
Yeah, I slid under the desk so she wouldn't see me.
Did you have to delouse the area?
Steady.
You know, OTB has showed a profit in the first year that she's been out.
That's under Palumbo.
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
Marion Berry, Washington, D.C. is on the verge of bankruptcy.
No, I am really glad that you made that point, because I heard a caller call Curtis the other night and say, and what about OTB? That's losing money worse than it's ever lost money. Nobody says anything about it now, do they, damn it? And yet, that's not true, because it was in the paper today that OTB has, in fact, made a profit. They're anticipating a profit by the end of this fiscal year. So congratulations. I think his name is David Palumbo.
Well, I wonder if that same caller is now going to call up and say, I can admit when I'm wrong. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John from Staten Island on WABC.
I've now seen 4 off the top of my head I can just think of right now. I'm sure there's more that I'm missing here, but Charles Schumer, Sheldon Silver, Mario Cuomo, and Charles Rangel, 4 ultra-left-wing wackos who have come out against tax cuts. Now, Jay, these are the same liberal lefties who always talk about the plight of the people. They always put people first, yet they don't want the people to end up with more money in their pocket.
Power to the people, right on.
Except when...
All power to the people. All power to the people.
He's full of love.
Wait, who was that? Hey, what was that?
Maybe that's the other John of Staten Island.
Hey, that's your alter ego. No, that's his conscience. Yeah.
My conscience is clear. But, yeah, Jay, these are the people who, these are the lefties who talk about how they're concerned about people. But when it comes to putting, speaking or acting on your words, the Democrats are against giving tax cuts because they want that money in their hands. That's what gives them power. Power to the people, except when it comes to Proposition 187, except when it comes to democratic elections that don't go their way. Then they say the people were stupid. The hypocrisy continues, Jay. Short and sweet tonight. Thanks a lot.
All right, John. Thank you.
Jay, Hilly is not interested in what is right or decent. if something is, or someone is black, Hilly is for it, or him or her. Color is all that matters to Hilly.
You see, for once you're wrong. He doesn't have anything to do with Roy Innes. He's black.
Yeah.
He doesn't like Professor Walter Williams. He doesn't like Stanley Crouch.
Yeah.
So
I get your point.
you can't say that he's prejudiced in favor of all blacks. Of course, Roy Innes isn't black, according to a guy like that.
In other words, it's political philosophy?
Right.
Yes, isn't that the same with us?
Right, that's right.
That's why we do like those same blacks.
Exactly.
You know, also, Hilly keeps saying, how come you're not out in the streets demonstrating like me, punk? Now, Jay, what is so brave about marching with a bunch of fellow racists, all of whom agree with you? And if Hilly is so brave, then how come he needs the police he hates so much at all these marches to protect him? And the other night, the other racist, Light, said blacks should buy from black people. They spend $350 billion a year. They should keep it in the community. Well, Jay, two things. Where did blacks get all that money and buying power in this racist, oppressive country? I didn't think blacks were able to make it so well in America. And secondly, if he wants to keep everything just in the community, then don't talk about white people in America keeping you outside of the mainstream. No one keeps blacks outside the mainstream. They keep themselves outside.
Those blacks that do.
Yes.
Not all blacks do keep
Well,
themselves outside.
Look, when I say they, it's very easy to say that word. Take it for granted that I mean those who want to do this, but which I believe to be the majority.
Because, you know, there are callers who don't like you. I was listening to a Jersey station last week, and a caller named Edith.
Uh-huh.
Was that her name?
Yeah, I think that was her name.
Yeah, it sounded like a he-she.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
think I heard that same call.
This thing called Edith was denouncing you in the most strident of terms, and you don't want to give her an excuse.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard that same call. It sounded like a multi-personality schizo.
That's right.
Jay, I don't know if you got a chance to watch that final episode of Messages from Moscow last night, where we on the right were once again proven to be correct when we said it was Ronald Reagan who caused the downfall of the Soviet Union. The Soviets in that documentary, and this is on Channel 13, an ultra-left-wing politically correct station, they admitted that it was Ronald Reagan's determination to rebuild the U.S. military, put cruise missiles in Europe, concentrate on SDI, and it frightened the hell out of them. They spent all their money, and it bankrupted them, and they decided that they could not keep up with the United States, and that's what caused them to come to the bargaining table, and then eventually their surrogates or their satellites rebuked them. But it was Ronald Reagan who did cause the downfall of the Soviet Union, and they admitted it with their own words. So, I have a whole file on the things that we've been vindicated on, and it's getting as fat as some talk show hosts.
All right, thank you, John.
We'll talk to you.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Look at this. They always do this to each other. When Hilly's on, John calls, and now Hilly came back, and he wanted to talk to John, but John went away too soon. But you know what happens when I do it? I put them on with each other. They immediately begin castigating each other to an extreme degree. Their denunciations are so loud and so strident and so energetic that you can't hear the other guy talk.
All of your lawyers are disbarred.
Oh? Yeah. All the lawyers that would defend you, they're all been thrown out.
Excuse me, there's only one lawyer disbarred, and that's Vernon Mason. The others are not disbarred.
You want to hold on while I do Colin Moore, attorney at law?
Go right ahead.
You want to be the audience?
Oh, I'll listen, absolutely.
What's on the background there?
I'm going to turn it off now. Hold on.
Turn the damn thing off,
Yeah, I will.
damn it. He's turning it off. He's probably listening to some... Well, who's that? It's probably some other station where maybe he's holding on now. Look at this. I hope nothing happened to him. Oh,
I'm back.
You never know. A person your age should always have somebody in the apartment with him. You never know. They could find you someday.
I'm in my own home, Jay, not an apartment.
Well, but I mean...
My own home.
Really?
That's right.
Your own home?
That's right.
How long have you been in the home?
How long have I been in the home that I own? All my life. No, actually, I've been a homeowner since 1954.
This is the Reverend Al Sharpton, and if you're looking for a dubious deal in a new or used vehicle, then I suggest you get on down here and have yourself a talk with honest Colin Moore. right here on the lot at Misdemeanor Motors. At Misdemeanor Motors, honest Colin Moore give you his solemn promise to plea bargain you behind the wheel of an automobile and have you on the road before bed check. Ain't that right, Colin? That's right, man. Hello, this is honest Colin Moore, and I'm saying to you that you got no need to worry about doing business here at Misdemeanor Motor. You say you got no job, no credit, bad credit? Well, no problem, man. Easy, low-down HRA financing available. Just $100 down. $100 a week for for $100. As I said, just $100 down, $100 a week for 100 years. That's right, Al. And don't you be worried about no Asa Aronson or that Arnold Diaz coming round saying shame, shame, shame on everything, man. Those two girly men don't come round here now, no how. Say, honest Colin, do you know that Hilly's listening while we do that? That's right, man. He's always around close to you, man. I think you're attached to him, man. Yeah, Colin, isn't that a beautiful little Buick you standing next to? You mean this one here, man? It got a good engine, low mileage, and it's cherry too, man. I know for a fact that this one here was owned by a little old lady from Buffalo who only drove it on Sundays to make the conjugal visit with a loved one in Elmira, man. Just to make that conjugal visit, the only reason she drive the car, just from Buffalo to Elmira and back. So if you're a member of the New York City school system and you need something to deliver supplies with, or a crip who's a little down on his luck, or just a simple recidivist looking for that deal of a lifetime on a swindled Chevy, beguiled Buick, or a pilfered Pontiac, then come on down to Misdemeanor Motor, man, and ask for me, honest Colin Moore. Just follow the white Ford Bronco. And remember, Misdemeanor Motor, man, I'm honest Colin Moore, and I want to take you for a ride.
Well, there, you like that? You talking to me?
Talking to me?
Oh, yeah, well, I'll tell you. Colin, with that terrible, terrible accent, and Alton Maddox, with his hatred of human nature, were the only people, with all the educated white lawyers and sellouts in the Jaga case, one to get the client off, and the other one to get the only acquittals. That's why they're out. You see what actually happened.
Well, don't forget Arthur Lewis. By the way, when is Arthur Lewis going to be disbarred?
For what?
I haven't got all night.
Oh, well, let me say this to you. The reason Alton Maddox and Colin Moore have been suspended is because they finally awakened people to the fact that there were good black lawyers out there to hire. And the people who already have this market sewed up were threatened.
Now, seriously, Chris Darden is a good black lawyer. Could you imagine him comporting himself the way
he's totally inept.
Chris Darden?
Yeah, I heard him today. He's inept.
He's inept, but Colin Moore is fine.
Colin Moore?
Yeah.
Damn good lawyer.
But Chris Darden's inept.
From what I see.
I see. All right. Wait, here's your...
Alton Maddox. How many cases you know Alton Maddox has lost?
Here's...
I'd like to know what they're rising from. Can you tell me, being the second most well-off economic group in the world? But, no, Jay, it's an outrage what's going on in this country, and it's about time we do, as Marcus Aurelius said, stand erect or be made to stand erect.
Now, don't hang up. Don't hang up abruptly, because I want you to do something for me, please.
What's that?
I would like you to denounce Christine Whitman in the hopes that you will be able to flush out Edith. Because the last time Edith called in reply to you, it was on a smaller New Jersey radio station. You had just denounced Governor Whitman, and then this woman, Edith, whom, as you know, I hold in great esteem, called to denounce you for denouncing Governor Whitman. So maybe if you just make a few remarks in antagonism toward Governor Whitman, Edith will be moved to call to denounce you in turn.
Yeah, I had a picture in my mind of some wacko in a granny dress and wig on the phone.
Hey, you're getting a little too personal now, John. You're getting a little too personal. Some very nice people have been characterized that way by Frank from Queens.
Yeah.
Yeah, big joke. It's not you he said it about. It's easy for you to laugh.
Well, you got to be flexible, Jay.
Yeah, I'm flexible.
Yeah, like, I don't understand these callers who call up and all of a sudden have discovered what Christy Whitman is all about. I spotted what she was all about during the campaign when she fell to her knees when she was accused of trying to buy the votes of black ministers. I knew right then that we were dealing with a politically correct muttonhead. And all of a sudden, for some reason, some people don't see this.
Will Edith now respond to you? That's the question.
Maybe, he's up at all hours, or she's up, or whatever it is.
Can you, for the people who don't understand what we're talking about, can you impersonate Edith? Can you...
How dare you say that about our governor?
Funny. That's what she sounded like.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
You dare to let him on the show again? That's what he said to the host, yeah.
Okay.
Any host that lets conservatives speak, that's who he goes after next.
Yeah, but we have to give the devil his due. The call as Edith was, in my view, some of the greatest high art that I've ever heard on talk radio in my life.
Well, people who are mentally ill,
Yeah.
they've got a lot of talent.
Well, that's true. This one particular individual, he knows that I admired his talent before he went insane. But, she. But nonetheless...
Him.
What? Shim?
Him, yeah.
That's pretty good. I like that. But nonetheless, it was a great performance, and if Edith calls, I'll put her on.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Well, maybe we'll have an encore one night.
That would be good. That would be good.
Thank you.
Thank you. John from Staten Island on WABC.